Sweet. Really good. Divine plan. Well, yeah, I tell you, I went to my favorite place. Wikipedia, you know. What are you going to do? You know, it's the online dictionary, encyclopedia, everything else. And so it says the will of God, divine will, or God's plan, is the concept of God having a plan for humanity and desiring to see this plan fulfilled. I like that. However, as I went through kind of looking at this and trying to decide what I was going to say and all that, I realized that I had a profound sense of sadness. And only because I realized how many things have been done in this world in the name of God's will or God's plan. See, as I look through the Bible, I mean, I go through the concordance. I mean, I tell you everything about me. See, I go through the concordance, and I look for references that I can use. And it appears, at least in the Bible, that divine plan is used more, as I see it, to justify one's actions or decisions than it is to describe the will of God. It means that essentially we are acting more often on our own interpretation of God's will or divine plan than we are listening for what is the plan right now. Also, there's sort of a fatalism or a surrender. You know, it was fate, it was God's will, it was divine plan, you know. Somehow it's acceptable to be a victim of God. I don't like that. It doesn't work for me. So in nature, form follows function. What that means is, whatever the true nature of a plant, a tree, an animal, whatever that is, the form, the body of it, will adapt to best express that function. You've all seen it. You know, you get a tree and some seed lands on a rocky area here, and you end up with this tree that grows really crooked, short roots, and kind of around, stuff like that. Or you look in a forest and there's these little trees that kind of do this to find the little bit of light there is. So the form changes, but the function is always there. The form in nature always goes to support the function. Now, in civilized cultures, like us, we create things, we acquire things, a lot of which don't really support our true function. So, to me, the intelligent approach is, well, here's what I want to accomplish. What do I need to do that? Makes sense, doesn't it? Instead of saying, well, here's what I have, or here's what I want to have, and what can I do with it? You didn't miss the subtleties there, right? Okay, I just want to make sure.
No, you might have to
Say it again.
Say it again. Say it again.
All right, number one is, what do I want to accomplish? And then knowing that, what do I need to do that? Versus what we usually do is, well, here's what I have, or here's what I want to have. Now, what can I do with this? Thank you. Thank you. Car industry. Everybody familiar with the car industry. You know, automobiles started out as a means of transportation. Very quickly, they morphed into something else. A status symbol, a symbol of power, you know, and you ended up with cars that had all this frou-frou stuff that looked really good and had nothing to do with actually getting from point A to point B. They just had to do with looking better doing it. Now we have this wonderful thing called the oil crisis. And what happens is that put the emphasis back on economy and aerodynamics so that cars would run more efficiently. They would do what they're designed to do better. Now, we still have a little frou-frou here and there, and we can pay a whole lot more and feel a lot better about it, but But notice that the car industry changed because there was a new demand. You know, you guys know this, but I just have to state the obvious. We could easily have all electric cars, all solar cars. I mean, I heard on the news yesterday about some car that runs on salt water. Salt water. 2 tanks of salt water in the car, and as the salt water moves from one tank to the other, it generates electricity, which then runs the car. And you can go about 400 miles on a gallon of salt, on a tank of salt water. We have the technology to do that. How come the automobile industry is not? Money, it costs money to change, and there is not enough incentive or demand. Over 100 years ago, Nikola Tesla designed the electric car. Now we have Tesla Motors putting out a more expensive version of it, but it's the same thing, because now it's necessary, because we're short on oil. You know, the East and the West, a lot has been said, the Far East, there's an overgeneralization. But in the West, pretty much what we say is, well, how much can I afford? You get a raise, you get a better job, I can buy a bigger house now. In the East, the question always is, how much do I need? How little do I need, actually, is the question. The difference there is in the original, ancient Eastern cultures. It's become very westernized now. But it's always like, what do I need to just do this? This car is fine. I know it's 20 years old, but it still gets me from A to B. Different focus. So let's assume, I'm giving the world the benefit of the doubt now, okay? Let's assume that we have millions of things in this world. Things in this world. Because each of those things potentially or ideally actually supports somebody's purpose. So what they say in this world, there's something for everybody. We just need to remember that there's not everything for somebody. We don't have to have it all. We only need our part. So what's the divine plan? Is it some architectural design that's rigid, that's unchangeable, and basically we're just waiting for people to wake up enough to fit into this and make it happen? Or is it perhaps more flexible, a more responsive plan that is tailored to each generation, each culture, each individual? I have a bias. I like to think it's more flexible. Otherwise, we'd be in deep doo-doo, guys. We don't fit the same model of our generations before. We need something that it fits for us right now. Cybernetics. Cybernetics was actually the study, it's about mechanical flexibility. And then out of that, this is a long time ago, it's fallen out of vogue a long time ago as well, but there came out psycho-cybernetics, which was the study of behavioral flexibility. And the basic premise in all of this is the piece of the machine or the organization or the organism that is the most flexible actually controls the whole organism. This, by the way, is kind of a variation on the weakest link theme. Okay, it's the weakest link that can have everything fall apart. It's the most flexible piece. So look at kids. If you want flexible people, look at kids. Okay? Kids don't get what they want. What do? They try another way to get it. I know you've all been standing in a supermarket line, and in front of you, there's a mom on her way home with a kid or a couple of kids, and the kid says, "Mom, I want this candy bar." And Mom says, no, dear, we're going home, we're going to have dinner, "No, Mom, I really want this candy bar." "No!" And finally the kid grabs the whole box of candy bars and puts them in her chin and says, "No, just one." You do what you gotta do. So, worldly circumstances change, which means we've got to update our guidance. We've got to listen. Where do I go now? We were talking this morning at the Miracle Mindedness group before, and I really highly recommend that, but that's another story. Come at 8:30 if you want. But we were talking about that, and like the GPS system, the GPS says, okay, you go straight for this distance here. You don't keep going straight, you keep listening. And if you don't listen, by the way, we're calculating route. You know, we need to know about the side, recalculating route. Oh, I got it, I missed a turn. Let me get back on track. So, you know, I don't think the divine plan has a whole lot to do with bodies or buildings or money and stuff, okay? I really think the divine plan is focused on having us fulfill our function. Now, if that's the case, what's our function? And do we all have the same function? So, of course, the miracle says forgiveness is our only function as the light of the world. Now, in Course in Miracles terms, that means our job, our only job, is to erase everything that isn't real until we finally uncover the Christ that we are created to be. Now, the good news is you don't have to know what your function is. You don't have to be able to articulate it. It doesn't matter what you call your function. What matters is how you live it. See, our mission here is to be love in the world. Now that means something different to each and every one of us, and each of us will express that and experience that in our own unique way. Now, from time to time in the history of this congregation here, there has been talk, thoughts, even visions about owning our own building. Instead of paying $3,500 a month rent, why don't we have something that's ours? Have a place that's a permanent home. Now, the good news about all of this is, we're like the automobile industry. You know, we don't really need to change anything. Everything works pretty darn well, doesn't it? The question is, could it work better? I don't know. In March, I mean, this is kind of a fun thing, but in March of 2008, a little while ago, we were having a board meeting. And Joe Kick, who was our musician for years and years and years, I think a lot of you know Joe. But Joe Kick actually came to that board meeting, and he brought this little sketch. Now, you can't see it from there. I just put this up here, so you're going to look on the wall over there, under Love in the World, in that room, where we started here. Yeah. But he brought this picture in. We were saying, where do we go? What do we do? He says, you know what? We could just go get a little piece of land and build a little yurt or something and just kind of get together natural. Last year, I was guided. I had an impulse. I don't know what it is. And I was looking online, and I saw a place called Eco Dome. Now, I have a thing for domes. I like domes. So I called them up. I said, I've seen all your little dome packages, your kits and stuff like that you put together for, you know, little things and for houses and stuff like that. Do you have anything that would work for a church? They said, you know, we just finished a special design for the, what is it called? The Beech Grove United Methodist Church in North Carolina. This is a 60-foot dome that will seat up to 172 people. It has a couple of wings up here for kitchen and dining and teaching rooms and Sunday school and stuff like that. And I thought, this is cool. So I said, how much? He says the kit is only about $80,000. Actually, it's about $60,000, but then I realized you got to get air conditioning. You got to get. It's about $80,000. Now there's labor, but that's not a big deal. It's not millions of dollars. So I'm putting this up here, and I'm going to put it on that wall over there. If you are moved, if you are inspired, write something on there. Write a word on there. See, this is... Let me go back a step. This is not saying, oh good, we've got to get a dome. Do we have to have a dome? No! And if we have a dome, does it have to be this dome? No! See, if this is a starting place, it's a starting place to wake up our inspiration and our vision. It's not about a building. It's about freedom and options and sharing and growing and living and loving. It's about possibilities. So I'm inviting you to write all over this. If it inspires you in any way, if you have a vision, a picture, a word, a description, anything, write on this. And right above it, we have put the little vision board that we put together that a couple of, oh, I don't know, 3 or 4 Sundays ago for Unity. We just put it there, and this will be underneath it. So feel free to use it. Look at it. See if it wakes up anything in you. See, egoic visions always have something to do with form or specific activities or measured achievements. Spiritual vision has to do with who you are. And it has to do with fulfilling your own function. See, the purpose of vision is not to create your ideal world. The purpose of vision is to create your ideal self. So what's God's will? What's the divine plan? Frankly, guys, I haven't a clue. Okay? And I actually don't think that we can really know what the divine plan is until we live it. See, I believe our job is to live our life the best we know, following spiritual guidance the best we can, until one day we look around and say, wow, this is a good life. I'm happy, I'm peaceful, the world around me is working. And we go, whoa, maybe that's it. Maybe this is my part of being love in the world. So thank you, guys.
All right,